I knew nothing about cars, Jason. My third month in the car business, I got fired. I sold 3 cars. They were all minis, a check for $0, and I had a sticky note attached that said, "You owe us this money unless you're fired." That was the transformational moment when I recognized that I was not being a good steward of my day. I was not being a good steward of my time. I made a decision then that I was going to become the #1 salesperson. As of June 9th, 2025, I closed and signed the papers to become a dealer, and I now own a dealership in Georgia. We have different thank you cards and messages throughout the vehicle that are hidden.
Creating loyalty.
Welcome to Driven Loyalty, the podcast with proven strategies and expert insights tailored for automotive professionals looking to maximize retention, enhance customer experience, and drive sustainable growth. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Driven Loyalty, where I get to talk to, well, anybody and everybody I want to talk to when it comes to driving loyalty in your dealership. And loyalty is the key. It's what's going to make, break, and increase your business. Today, guys, I have a very special guest with me. In fact, I've been looking forward to talking to this person for a while because they got all kinds of cool things going on in their world. But hey, we can't make cool content like this without our sponsors. And here's a quick message from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Podium. So here's a question for you. What would it mean for your dealership if you had one more employee who worked 24/7, never took a break, and was focused solely on turning every lead into a yes, even the after-hour ones, into test drives, a sale, and ultimately, more revenue? Well, let's meet Jerry, Podium's brand new AI BDC. Jerry is a lead conversation machine, ready to jump on every lead that comes in instantly. He can answer questions, keep those leads engaged, and even schedule test drives, all without any direct human supervision. And here's the best part. With a seamless handoff to your sales team, your customers will never even know they were interacting with an AI. If you're curious about how Podium's AI BDC can help you move more cars, check it out at podium.com/SWJ. That's for Strategy with Jason. That's podium.com/SWJ, or just hit the link in the show notes below. All right, guys, I have the one, the only, the oh so famous. He paid me to say that. No, I'm just kidding. Jonathan Dawson with Cellcology with me. Jonathan, what is going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, brother. Good to see you. Now, Jason, the correct introduction is Mr. Oh So Famous.
Oh, Mr. Dang it, I missed it.
Or Sir Mr. Oh So Famous is my preference. But yeah, good to see you, Jason. Thanks for the invite.
I saw it on your business card one time.
Right next to head janitor.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, I am so glad that you had a chance to come jam with me. I'm very excited about the topic we're going to get into. Guys, for everybody out there watching and listening, today we're talking about poor post-sales engagement. I could have just said post-sales engagement. We could have just gone from there. But hey, let's call it what it is. All right. There are some great operators out there that do have great strategies around this, but I'd say for the most of us, we could all definitely improve. And Jonathan, I'm excited about getting into this conversation with you. But hey, I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. Because I'm fundamentally fascinated, and I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, car business. That's where I'll go spend the next 30 years. So, Jonathan, let's start there. How in the world did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Well, the anniversary, my 25-year quarter century anniversary, is next month in August. August 2000 is when I got in the car business. And so now I've been serving and being in the car business for 25 years. When you say that out loud, of course, it feels way bigger and like, I don't know what I've been doing for 25 years doing something, but that's my origin. I got started in a small dealership, a family-owned little operation in rural Kansas. There was 5 salespeople on the sales floor. I was the 6th man. I remember my first day overhearing someone say something about them flooding the floor, and I thought we had a water leak somewhere in the building. I knew nothing about cars, Jason. If you had said to me, the young 22-year-old me, what's the difference between a V6 and a 4-cylinder? I would have honestly answered, one has 6, one has 4, and the V probably stands for something. That's about my knowledge on cars. But I got into the car business. The correct answer, which is a deeper answer than maybe we want to go into this particular episode, but the correct answer is I was led here by God. I mean, the only actual answer is I was at the bank. I had just moved into that town. My wife was getting her master's degree at the local university, and we were newlyweds. We had just relocated our lives to this little town in Kansas. And the next morning, with my U-Haul still in the driveway, I get up and I, tell my bride, I'm going to go open up a bank account. I'm going to check out the city that we just moved to. And while I'm opening a bank account at this credit union, I can only describe it as what happened. It sounds weird when you hear it, but some of you may relate to this. But I had this thought that I knew at the moment wasn't my own, but it felt like a random thought, but it was go sell cars. And at the moment that I heard this in my head, my heart, I heard go sell cars, I really disregarded it immediately as a weird and random thought because I had zero interest in being in the car business. My only experience dealing with a car dealership was the 2 times I ever tried to buy a car from a car dealership. One time I decided to just not do it at all. The second time, they tried to, take advantage of me, and I just hated the whole experience. So I was just like, you know what? So the idea of being a car salesperson at that moment in my life was a totally foreign idea. Well, while completing the paperwork, I heard it a second time and then a third time. And I say I heard it because it wasn't something that I can say originated inside of me. So I asked the lady at the counter, I said, hey, where are the car dealerships in town? She told me there was only 3 to choose from. They're right down the road. And I went in there, and I still remember to this day, the very first thing I said, because it was like having an out-of-body experience. I met then at the time, he was the manager, a guy named Seth. Seth was physically, Jason, this was what actually happened. He was physically throwing a person out of the building while I was walking up. I walked in one side of the show floor, and across the show floor was this man grabbing another man and saying, "Go on, get out. We don't need you." Turned out that was apparently a customer who was making an unreasonable offer on a vehicle. I found that out later. But this gentleman, this big giant man, I'm a big guy, but this guy was towered over me. He walked up to me, big old cowboy hat, big old mustache, and he shook my hand, crushed it like this when he did it. And he said, "I'm Seth Eiley. What can I do you for, son?" And I said, "My name is Jonathan Dawson, and today I'll have a job selling cars, and it'll be for you or your competition, and you don't want me working for your competition. I want to interview you and see if I want to work here." And I tell you again, I say this, it sounds funny to hear, when you hear this, but I did not plan that. That was not a script I rehearsed or anything. That just kind of came out of me. And of course he was impressed. First impressions, he was impressed. And that's where essentially, long story short of it is I got hired and started in the dealership at this little town and this little dealership. And, it was an interesting model because the salespeople at that store, Jason, had a lot of seniority. I think the youngest experiential staff member was 5 years at that store. That was the newest guy. And then they went from 8, 10, 12. And there was a guy who'd been, there for 15 years. And I was the new guy. And I was out of place, man, fish out of water. And I struggled in the beginning. And, people who know my story know that, my first month, I sold 10 cars in 12 days, which was, half a month from August. At middle August to end of the month, 10 cars, 12 days. Pretty good. Next month, I set a goal of 20, sold 12. Next month, set a goal of 15, sold 3, and got fired. So my third month in the car business, I got fired. I sold 3 cars. They were all minis. They took out taxes, insurance, and some other charges for being new. And I owed the store money. They had a check. I tell you, Jason, my biggest regret to this day, anyone who knows my story knows, I always say the number one regret I have in the car business is this, that I didn't keep the check that they had that they printed for me that had 0.00, a check for 0. And it had a sticky note attached that said, "You owe us this money unless you're fired." And then I got fired. But anyways, to speed that story part up a little bit, just to give you context, the person who's now giving you advice is the guy who sold 3 cars and got fired. I just want everybody to know that.
That's great.
Buckle up. Get ready for some great note taking, right? What's this guy going to teach us? But that was the beginning. That was the beginning of a transformational experience for my life. And for really me in the car business now 25 years later was when standing in the doorway of my owner who was telling me that I was fired, I put on my selling shoes and I convinced him to give me a second chance. And then I went out back behind the dealership screaming at the clouds, mad at God, going, "I thought you brought me here. What am I doing here?" And it hit me 3 things. One thing 3 times. But I heard this, again, in my spirit, I heard this, "It's all your fault." And of course, I didn't believe that the first time And then it's all your fault. And I still didn't understand why it could be my fault. And then I heard it a third time. A young man, 22 years old, newlywed, broke, no money in his bank account, owed the store money, just got fired, got a second chance for a minute. And standing there, I heard for the third time, it's all your fault. And that's when it occurred to me, Jason, that it was all my fault. That was the transformational moment when I recognized that I was not being a good steward of my day. I was not being a good steward of my time. I was just checking out the car business. And as the old expression goes, when you check out the car business, you eventually check out of the car business. And I made a decision then that I was going to become the number one salesperson at dealership, the number one salesperson in my town, that I would one day change the way people buy cars. And God honored that desperate prayer, that desperate cry of my heart at 22 years old, and helped me become the number one salesperson in my dealership in my town. And now I get to change the way people buy cars. And so that's the origin of how I got in the car business. And for those who are familiar, years later, I started my own training company, now known as Sellcology, Selling Through Psychology. And I'm the co-founder of the Pinnacle Society, along with Ali Reda and Frank Crenity. Many of you maybe know those names, two of the top salespeople in the history of the entire car business who still sell cars. And they partnered with me on a high-performing coaching program for top salespeople. But I've now been in 3,000 dealerships across 7 countries. I'm a 24-time NADA speaker. And as some of you know, because you saw the announcement, depending when you watch the stream, I will be going back in 2026 for my 25th speaking session at NADA. So now I'll be a 25-time NADA speaker.
Dude, and that's not all, folks.
That's all.
Let me just say that. That's not all.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan, what else did you just recently do that's a little crazy, man?
Yeah. So those, again, who are not familiar, I'm wearing today my Cherokee shirt. For a while now, as a consultant, as a dealer consultant, as a trainer, as someone who's been in lots of dealerships, who speaks at 20 groups and all these things, gets invited to share best practices, because I work with some of the top dealerships in the country, some of the top salespeople in the country. So I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to do that. But for a while now, I've had this idea in my head, which is, I help all these dealerships doing all these things. And even my best clients will tell you, my best clients in a 20 group, when they announce me, when they introduce me, they say, this guy is the one who helped us transform our numbers. They'll still admit, and we probably only use 30 to 40% of the stuff he's taught us. And so for a while, I've thought, what if there was an opportunity for me to actually be a dealer? And so as of June 9th, 2025, I closed and signed the papers to become a dealer. And I now own a dealership in Georgia. We're located in Canton, Georgia. And Cherokee Mitsubishi is the brand that I bought. It is a very broken store. It was losing $100,000 a month when I bought it. Last month, we closed on the 9th. We got our dealer code basically on the 10th. And in 17 days, we managed to only lose $327 for the month. So I made a $99,600 or whatever it is swing in a month. So we're moving it in the right direction. But yes, I'm now a dealer. So I'm one of the few vendors who can honestly say I put my money where my mouth is, where my shoes are, where my butt is, and I went all in on the car business. So
you went on, and you know what the funny thing is? I love the fact that you chose a Mitsubishi because, I did something similar. I was working for a very large automotive group in 2010, and I just said, man, this is crazy. Why don't I just own my own? And that's when I went and bought Cambridge Mitsubishi. And so when I heard and saw that you did a Mitsubishi dealership, I'm like, dude, that's the one. That's the people don't get it. People don't get it. There is just something that look, I remember sitting down with Hyundai. I remember sitting down with Ford, and it was all about hey, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for me? And then I remember sitting down with Mitsubishi, and they're like, here's what we can do for you. And I was just like, man, I'm in. Let's do this. Right.
Yeah, they're definitely a get your foot in the door store. So
it is, right? It's look, I tell everybody, hey, look, it's a used car dealership, the flag out front, but you make it what you want to make it, right? And look, I loved Mitsubishi. I still love Mitsubishi. May go back one day. I sold my dealership in 2015. And that's when I crossed over to the dark side and became a vendor. But I, look, dude, I love the fact that literally within a couple months of you working at the dealership, you're like, this is where I'm going to go. I was 3 months into the business. I was still just counting my commission checks, man. I didn't have any idea of what I was going to do until I ran into a great mentor who pushed me and said, "Hey, look, you're eventually going to own a dealership. You need to do these things." Right. And man, this industry, it gets into your blood. You can't get it out. You love this industry as much as I love this industry. And you just have to be thankful, that, just for what this industry has given, us an opportunity. That's why we get to be here and we get to have these conversations. That's why it's so awesome to be able to do that.
Right.
And guys, today we're going to talk about poor post-sale engagement. Jonathan, you've seen the bad, you've seen the good, you've seen the ugly, and I'm not talking about the amazing movie of all time. I'm talking about car dealerships. All right, let's just start there, man. What have you seen around poor post-sales engagement? And then we'll get in deeper into our people, process, and technology conversation.
Yeah, well, I think that really anybody who's either been a consumer or been on the retail side knows that the post-sale, and for now we're talking the retail transaction, not even talking service, really just talking about you buy a car and what happens after the fact. And we all know that there's very little that in the way of any follow-up, any follow-through, even to the point of helping people with WEO type stuff, like immediate post-sale support to a customer who you may have obligations to. And a lot of times it's, because we have a very transactional mindset in the car business, we track everything with quantitative calculations. It's just about the numbers. So it's like, hey, I moved that unit, move on to the next one, 0 to 0. So much of what we've trained really in the psychology of the management team and the salespeople is just a numerical, notch on the belt kind of mentality. And so I think post-sale, there's a lot of neglect there because, hey, I already sold them. And because of the life cycle that most salespeople think about from the perspective of I'm not going to probably sell them a car again for 3 years or more. Well, what's the point of continuing a relationship? What's the point of staying in touch? What's the point of doing anything to do anything? Because, I can't make money.
I'm not going to see him anymore, right? You know what?
Yeah, I'm not going to make money off this.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because, by the way, sometimes I find rabbit holes and I like to go down them. So just for everybody watching, listening, you know how it goes. I find a rabbit hole, I go down it, right? That's not the way I got started in the business. So when I got started, and I'm sure it was probably similar for you, when I got started in the business, I had a mentor of mine, and he said, "Look, Jay, you need to sell 500 cars." I said, "Well, I hope for my career I sell more than 500 cars." No. You need to sell 500 cars. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of waiting for this, like, what else do I need to do? And you need to service the crap out of them.
Yeah.
All right. And just take care of them. And, he goes, look, you see, and there was, you know how it is. You've been to 3,000 dealerships. There's that one guy, that one gal, right? They don't even take ups. Right? They've sold multiple generations of families, all right, cars, and they get a phone call. They leave the golf course, they come in, they do a paperwork, and then they go back out. When did that mentality dissipate in our industry, man?
Well, I think part of it is, again, that dealers in general, maybe sometimes driven by the manufacturer, from the OEM, kind of pressures for moving the number, is we focus so much on next, and the next one, not the one right now that I have in front of me. And even like on a super practical level, like, I'll see salespeople on a phone call, for example. And again, we kind of this, they take an inbound phone call. And if I had a stopwatch, right, and I went from the time they picked up the call to the time they hang up the call, what is the average length of time that they're going to be on that phone call, that new inbound phone call? 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, if that. And they hang up so that they can do what? Stare out the window and watch cars driving by and maybe count raindrops from the sky as they pray to God on high that someone will come in and buy. And they just sit there. And it's like, why did you race to get off the phone with somebody who literally, they're a hand raiser, they're waving at you saying, I want to talk to you about a vehicle. And it's like you rush to get off that call so you can do what next? Stand around and do nothing? Like, why is that call not nurtured? Why don't you want to know more about their situation, their goals, their objectives, what they're trying to accomplish? So my target in my phone training that I provide is my minimum acceptable standard is a 7-minute call with a target of closer to 12. And so somewhere in that 7 to 10 minutes is the sweet range, that if your average inbound phone call lasts 10 minutes, the likelihood of that relationship approach then translating to an appointment that shows is exponentially higher. But salespeople, quite frankly, are not trained how to do this. Management does not have an expectation of this. No one's really asking them about this. No one's measuring it. No one's monitoring it. And so it's just a numbers game. And unfortunately, when you create enough of this numbers game, it feeds into itself, and then it creates a culture of it. And then everybody's just chasing next instead of the one that's, right in front of you right now, or the one you just took care of, like even from a referral generation or from prospecting the households of that customer. Like there's so much value in an individual person that you take great care of. For them to become your lead generator and your lead source, they should become a referral machine for you. But most of them, not only would they not refer back to the salesperson because they have no relationship with them, but even weeks later, they don't even remember the name of the dealership sometimes.
Isn't that sad? I mean, and you think about that for a second. I just made one of the largest purchases I've made in my life. The experience was so piss poor that I don't even remember the name. Like, look, I remember the name of the bartender, one of my favorite restaurants. Why? Because when I go in there, it's like cheers for me. Like, hey, Mr. Right. You're here. You want the regular? Yes, please. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, but no, I'm with you. And I love the fact that you measure time, right? Funny story. When I first got in the car business, I got a name tag. I'm sure you did too, right? Name tags, Jason Harris on it. Mine didn't say sales consultant. You know what mine said? Consultant. So when I received my name tag, I actually thought that was the business I was in. I thought I was in the consultant. Now, I actually don't think this was intentional. I think it was actually accidental. I think the tag, they couldn't fit the extra. They just went with consultant on it, right? But it had the Chrysler logo, or sorry, the Chevy logo, and then consultant, and then my name underneath it. And I just thought that was the business I'm in. Okay, so let's do it this. I want to get into why this happens, but I want to attack it from a people, a process, and a technology perspective. You already started to kind of go down the path of people, but I really want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that, because that's our first, that's the glue that's going to keep that customer from actually, coming back to our business, but creating that loyalty, that relationship. How do we find this? What are we looking for in those people? And then when we do get them, what do we need to do with them?
Well, ultimately, again, the psychological profile of a classic car salesman profile is much more the hunter than the farmer, right?
Sure.
That's the nature of what we look for and what we expect. And so, even our comp plans, everything is kind of designed around the one shot, one kill, get paid, get fed. And so there's not really anything around designing both from a pay plan and a job description, and even the title that you just referenced being consultant versus sales consultant, right? Just even the way we label and title things, there's not an expectation that we're looking for a person who can nurture and sustain long-term relationships. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're telling we're looking for. And so the gap breaks down is that we're hiring people whose predisposition is to think in these very short-term windows. Then our comp plan is, here to zero. So it's always like hard stop, right? And so they don't feel like they're accumulating anything. There's not anything like that. So the reward system is set up that way. The type of person we're hiring that way. And then of course the management system is that way. And so it all feeds into this kind of this mentality. If you want to change it, it really can be as simple as what you just said is, what are we looking for, and what is the correct label for what we're looking for? Because, for example, even in the classic debate that happened years ago, but it's still out there about, should we call people salespeople at all? Should we call them product specialists? Like, right? What's the correct way to label people? Well, I had a similar experience that you did, which is when I changed the way I self-identified with my customers on the lot. As a young salesperson, I changed what I was from salesperson to I actually said I was in sales and customer service, and that I was a representative of Toyota, or I represented the brand. But my primary responsibility is to make sure you have a great experience while you're visiting our dealership. And this was kind of a self-identity rewiring. I wanted to see myself differently.
Sure.
There's a great quote that somebody may want to write this down if you're a note taker, because this is actually one of these quotes that has the power to permeate other areas of your life and really be a transformative way of thinking. And it comes from a gentleman by the name of David Salyers. He was one of the original executive managers within Chick-fil-A. When Chick-fil-A's headquarters was a warehouse building, he was on the panel that eventually created the Cows and the Eat More Chicken campaigns. But he was tasked with a really fascinating job. And let me get into again why this ties to people and eventually to processes things. But he was tasked with a really important job as Chick-fil-A was expanding and growing. They wanted to have standardization. They wanted to have systemization. They wanted to have a great customer experience across the brand. And he was tasked with going around and finding the best practices of all these operators so they could eventually categorize them and then turn them into a consistent manual. And one of the questions he asked was, what do you believe we do here? So how do you see what we do here? Now, imagine for a moment, Jason, just pretend you're a Chick-fil-A general manager, right? And I ask you that question. So what is it that we do here? Just answer the question off the top of your head.
We sell chicken.
Sell chicken, right? And you can imagine the spectrum of answers, right? Some people thinking that the trap would say we sell the Lord's chicken, right? Or some people might say, we sell chicken, we sell great chicken, right? Or we take care of our customer while selling great chicken. Well, as he traveled around, he got to the number one most profitable Chick-fil-A per square foot, but also, and this was the more important stat, this one location actually produced more future GMs than any other location in the nation. At the time, more future managers came out and through this location and then opened up new locations from this one place. And he asked the general manager of that place, he asked him that question, what do we do here? And here's what his answer was. I see us as a leadership training academy that masquerades as a chicken sandwich shop.
I love it.
Right?
Yes.
I see myself as a leadership training academy masquerading as a chicken sandwich shop. And from that experience that David had with that manager, this quote that I'm now going to give you, that's a life quote, is this: how I view things will determine how I do things. Mm-hmm. How I view things will determine how I do things. So when it comes to, for example, the people or the process, the technology, when it comes to any of these big, broad questions, we got to ask, what lens do we have and how we view what we're trying to do? Because how I view things will determine how I do things.
You're so right on this. And you brought up something, rabbit holes, right? And I love the fact that you brought up the pay structure, right? Because I've been attacking this kind of whole driven loyalty and creating more loyalty from people, process, and technology. Maybe I should be doing it from people, process, technology, and pay. All right? Because I love, look, to get to a place that you're talking about right now, right? The objective or how I ultimately make my money needs to be in line with,
of course,
right? So one of the things I did, and I actually look, I operated one of the most profitable Mitsubishi dealerships in Canada. And, and there were a lot of reasons for that. There was no one big reason, right? There were a lot of little tiny reasons why it was the most profitable. One of the things I did, and this is, I don't think I've shared this out there on the podcast before, but I paid my salespeople $250 more if the customer was already in our database. And I'll tell you, Jonathan, the reason why. So if any operators are watching and listening right now, I knew exactly what my acquisition cost was. All right. And if I didn't have to spend that in marketing, then I felt I could share that with my team. So anybody that was a referral, I paid the salesperson $250 more. Why? Because I actually saved a couple $100 in advertising that I would have had to do to acquire that individual, right? Now, that got me into a place where I got to where you were just now talking about, get me into this beautiful place where now I can actually coach these people on creating that relationship, but creating that relationship now also benefited them financially. Right?
That's right.
So now, and I know I'm touching on process now, and now I want to kind of get deeper into kind of the process side, because you're right. Our people, I'm with you 100%. And you know this, you've been to 3,000 dealerships. We know the best operators out there, all right, have this leadership coaching mindset of, it's funny, how many times you hear about that guy, it's like, oh God, we're going to train them to be the GM. Yeah, but your GM's not going to go anywhere. That's okay. they're going to find another dealership they can be a GM of, right? But it's that mind. It creates a culture. Anyways, I'll digress. Let's get more into the process. And you have some specific thoughts and ideas on this, on how do we build a system around driving loyalty at the dealership?
Well, let me tell you some of the things we're doing at my dealership. So I'm going to try to make it super practical takeaways that dealers can copy. Okay. And I will say that, to your point, my comp plan actually pays different based on the source quality of the customer. So I don't just have a quantitative pay plan, I have a qualitative pay plan. So is it a repeat? Is it a referral? Is it self-generated, sourced? where did the customer actually come from? All that's tracked, and then they're paid differently to incentivize that. I want to pay them differently to have a repeat household, which is someone from that same address who's already in our DMS coming back to us. I want to pay differently for a service conquest, somebody who's never bought from us but is servicing with us. How do I then get them to buy? Because that's going to be a stronger retention loyalty customer if they're servicing and now they buy, right? So all these pieces have to be part of it. Then you get into the process piece. Well, let me give you a very simple, practical way that we are currently working on building that loyalty within our network when it comes to automating processes. Well, right now at our dealership, when you buy a car from us, we are, as part of the delivery process, we're making the delivery process a very, very specialized or special experience, because we know that your first impression, your last impression, those are the two impressions that stick the most.
Got to bookshelf it, right?
Right. Yeah. So you got to have that great experience on both sides. Well, as part of our delivery, included in that experience, trying to make that wow is a few things. Number one, right away, when you walk out of the finance office, and this is just the practicality of what we have right now, we're staging the car on the show floor if we can. So if it can be right on the show floor, right out of the finance office, when they come out, they walk out and there's their car. But it's not just their car. There's a red carpet. There's the rope stanchions. There's 2 balloon towers. There's a bow on it. We have confetti poppers that go off, right? So
celebrate, right?
That whole experience as well. Well, all that is kind of pre-staged. We have all those things pre-staged, so we always know that when it's time from the time they go into the office, we're right at about an average around 2 minutes and 45 seconds is the total amount of time it takes from the time they close the door to. It's almost like I'm trying to get to an F1 tire. I'm trying to do and back on the track, right? So from the time that they do, everything is brought out, boom, starts getting staged. Inside the vehicle, we have an Easter egg hunt. We have different thank you cards and messages throughout the vehicle that are hidden.
Love it.
For example, underneath your driver's side floor mat, when you finally lift that floor mat for the very first time, which might be 6 months, 9 months, or a year from today, there's a note that says, if you found this, you're probably cleaning your car for the first time. Please bring it by sometime. Let me know, and I'll give you a free detail. Let's catch up and have some coffee. I'd love to hear how life is treating you.
That's awesome.
Inside the passenger side visor is a note. Inside the back flap of one of the car seat or one of the seats back flap is a note. Where the spare tire kit would be, or where the spare tire would be, there's a note, and it says if you found this. You're on the side of the road somewhere. I hope you're okay. Here is my service manager's number. Here's your roadside assistance number. Here's your tire and wheel warranty number. Here's my cell phone number. Will you please let me know you're okay? These are things that we can put in place once.
Yes. That
will have a residual impact on that customer down the road. In fact, for example, when you open up the gas cap for the very first time to get gas, there's a $2 bill wrapped around the salesperson's business card, and all it says is here's just a couple bucks to get you on your way. Please keep this and always think of me. The average person who gets a $2 bill 2 weeks or 3 weeks after buying the car opens up their gas cap. We see it all the time right now. We are getting text messages, Facebook posts, tags where people are saying, I can't believe what I just found in my car. Then 3 weeks later, the same salesperson is getting tagged again with they found another note.
Sure.
And it's like, look what I found for my salesperson when I bought the car a month ago. It's amazing. I can't believe I just found this. So, it's like we're starting to see this. But the automation part is, let's have a system that once put in place, anchors their psychology back to the delivery and experience, right? Reminding them of that emotional experience. And that has a residual, kind of drip effect on their ownership, always having some sort of presence of mind. Now, on top of that, we have at our store, we have a pack specifically per sale for swag. So on top of that, everybody's leaving with a stainless steel travel mug. Everybody's leaving with a hat, can koozies, keychains, pens, a bunch of other stuff that we give people at part of the delivery. Because what we want is we want to have a presence. We want to live in your house, your car, and your workplace. And this is part of how, from a post-sale perspective, we can always be accessible to the customer. We can always be available, and we can always be reminding them of who we are and what we did for them.
Dude, I'm just going to say, I'm just, you know what I mean? That deserves a round of applause. I know there's a button on this board somewhere that does that, but I don't know which one it is. But no, dude, I'm so with you on this, Jonathan. Right? Creating loyalty, for everybody out there watching, listening right now, creating loyalty doesn't happen just because it happens. It happens because you're intentional. All right. And, the strategy and the process that Jonathan just laid out for you guys is intentional. It has to be intentional. Now, look, I know some of you guys out there watching, listening right now, and you're like, I couldn't do that. You know what? I'll tell you, go into any Lone Star. And I'm sure there's some steakhouse everywhere that's probably like this, and tell them it's your birthday. Watch what happens, right? If they can execute that for a $20 lunch, you can't execute what Jonathan just talked about for a $25,000 purchase. I'm going to tell you're full of crap. All right. Because you 100% can. When your objective is to create a loyal customer, it is amazing how you will process the delivery. You'll process the way you answer the phone. You'll process the way that you service the car. All right. But we have to have that mindset. Now, you touched a little bit on technology, and I know we're going over time, but I think this conversation is so good. I just want to kind of keep going with this because there are so many technology opportunities that we can use to enhance the process and be able to do more than we even had before in kind of that, post-sales engagement. Let's talk a little bit about the technology, maybe some of the stuff you're using at the dealership.
Yeah, so we've subscribed to DriveCentric. It's my favorite CRM out there. So if you have to bleep the name of it because you can't have
I don't care.
sponsored names or whatever. But DriveCentric is our strategic partner in customer relationship management, right? The CRM tool. So we're using them, which have a very robust AI integration and AI communication tool for helping our team stay in touch with customers, remind customers of opportunities, service reminders, all the things that we would want from a conversation to continue that supports and fills the gaps between the natural inability of a salesperson or a team member to just always be on top of every conversation that has to happen. So we're excited about that. We're currently, again, we're a new store. So I want to just be clear at the time of this recording, tomorrow is our 1 month anniversary. So we're 1 month in to having me bought the store. So there's some pieces that we're integrating right now that I'm excited about from an AI perspective. Until I have the fruit of them, until I have them, kind of locked down, I can't speak to all the results they're going to get us. But there's some technologies that we've got when it comes to referrals. We've recently started a pilot test with a software called Blabber. Blabber is a new tech. It's we're one of the pilot dealers because I know the lady who built it, and it's a fantastic, again, integrated tool for referral generation and for allowing your customers to become your referral agents and drive traffic to you. It's got an entire integrated reward point system. It's got gamification built into it. It's got override built into it, so a person can enroll sub agents, and it's got tiers. It's really it's sophisticated, borderline complex, but it's sophisticated in its approach to helping dealers, again, to retain and produce loyalty. Because one way that you can keep customers loyal to you, by the way, is having a really strong referral strategy and referral program in your network, right? So from a technology perspective, integrating technology into your referral strategy, if I ask the average dealership, do you have a bird dog? And they'll say, yeah, it's like $100. I go, okay, great. So your average cost of acquisition through third-party leads is closer to $400.
Exactly.
So you're paying 4 times the money in advance upfront because you got to buy the ad spend before you get the sale, right? So you got to spend 4x on hope, but then on the customer who is loyal to you, who wants their friends and family to buy from you, you'll invest $100. And in some stores, they charge the salesman half of that, right? So as we charge the dealer, we charge the salesman $50. It's like, so you really don't want referrals then. You don't really have a strategy around referrals.
It's a proverbial checkbox.
It's exactly right. Dealers, and I say this with all compassion and love because I am now one of you, but as I've served you for 20 years, dealers give lip service all the time to customer loyalty and our people are our most important asset. And the way I can test whether or not what you said is actually true is show me your training budget and I'll tell you don't really give a damn about your people. You don't have a training budget. You don't have a training budget. You have a popcorn budget. You don't have a training budget. So you don't really care about your people. Stop it. You're a liar. And the second one is your referral strategies. Tell me how much you love, referrals and self-generation, loyalty and customer retention, all this stuff. Baloney. You don't have a strategy for customer retention. I mean, this is, hey, if I throw a rock and it hits you, that's the one I was talking to here. I know not every dealer is this way. And many of my clients have my philosophy. That's why they become my clients. But for the average dealer who has a 10 or 12 car per person average across their store, you are average because your mentality is average. You do what the average dealer does. But stores that are on Mission 22 with me, which have 22 cars per person store average, so 10 people selling 230 cars with 10 people, right? When you have a store that's producing that level, which is a lot of my clients, the reason why they're able to achieve that is because how I view things determines how I do things. Their model of the world, their investment into AI and technology, their investment into tools and systems, their investment into their team, their investment in all this is based on a belief. They have a belief that my most valuable customer is the customer who's already trusted me once. That's my most valuable customer, my service and my sales customer. And then chasing these other people and bribing people, as there was a John Wanamaker, I believe he's quoted as saying, the trouble with advertising is half the money I spend is wasted and the other half is doing something. The problem is I just don't know which half, right? And another guy famously said that advertising is the tax you must pay on delivering an unremarkable experience. So when you realize that, it's like, I'm going to build on purpose an army of advocates. I'm in the advocacy business. I'm in the business of creating raving fan advocates.
Yep.
When you adopt that mindset, Jason, that's when things take off.
Oh, no. And it truly does. Look, you're operating a Mitsubishi dealership. I did the exact same thing. And look, I know margins are tight, right? So I looked, my path going down the direction of really kind of diving more into creating loyalty. Yes, it came from a mentor of mine, but also it was a financial decision. All right. To your point, Jonathan, it is costly to constantly be in acquisition mode. It is expensive. It's exhausting to my team. It's exhausting to my process. All right. Technology. Everybody's got a piece of technology out there that wants to help you acquire new business. Right. But to turn your existing business into loyal customers is the key. It's funny. I'll give a shout out to Steve Rosser because he's actually lives very close to me. So you see, all right. But you're right. Any piece of technology out there. I'm a huge fan of Podium, from an AI perspective. So if you get a CRM that you're stuck in and you can't go drive such go Podium. But it doesn't matter what the piece of technology is. That technology needs to be supporting the process and the people you put in place intentionally to create loyal customers, right? But it all becomes a bit like, look, you guys, if you're out there watching and listening right now, if you've been listening to the conversation me and Jonathan have had, one thing you're going to find is that everything's very objective driven here. All right. You are not going to have loyal customers unless it's an objective of yours. All right. And if it is going to be your objective, then you need to be intentional about it, intentional about the way you budget things. Yes, you need to be having a training. You need to have a people budget. You need to have a process budget. You have a technology budget. I'm surprised you can't figure out how the other two don't work. Right. But no, really, here's the thing, Jonathan. I think, look, it's 2025. There's no excuse, right? So, to the technology we were just talking about, there's no excuse not to be able to come up with an amazing communication strategy that will drive loyalty, right? Look, it's 2025. If you don't have a written process, there's a great product called ChatGPT, and you go in there in about 15 seconds, it will create whatever process in documented format that you wanted. And for people, look, guys, we talked a little bit about the pay structures, and I think that could be a whole podcast. Jonathan, I'd love to do a podcast just on pay structures alone, right? But you've heard what Jonathan's doing at his dealership. You heard what I did at my dealership. Like, look, your people, your objectives need to be tied to your objectives, and that means financially as well. So if you're constantly creating this 30-day, hey, you're only as good as your last month crap, guess what you're going to get out of it? You're going to get people that only care about that, and that is not going to be aligned with your objective. Jonathan, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, but I'd love to leave some time for you for last thoughts. And of course, I think there's a lot more in this conversation that still needs to be said. So for anybody out there watching and listening who'd love to connect with you, what is the best way to do so? But let's get your last thoughts and then how people can connect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. To your point that you just ended there about compensation. Yeah, people pay attention to things they're paid to pay attention to. And so it's a really important thing to recognize that if you have a gap in your team's focus, it's likely because they're not in any way compensated to pay attention to that. Now, obviously, there's certain things that are kind of baked into the job description, but the reality is your reward system, your incentivization structure is tied to the parts of the brain that drive attention span. And so it's really important to ask that, hey, is there a reason why we're not getting this behavior? And, a really simple example of that most dealers can actually relate to because they've seen it done or they've done it themselves. It's like, hey, we were getting no reviews until we offered $25 per 5-star review. And all of a sudden now we got 500 reviews, right? And it's like, yeah, why? Well, because you put a little something on top of it. You made them pay attention to the big picture, and that's what happened, right? But in general, my passion is, as a consultant, I'm on a mission to save the world one salesperson at a time. And I'm on a mission to make every manager's world a little bit better place. And in order to do that, I want to focus on teaching them the psychology behind what we do in this business, the why behind the process. And in doing so, if I can help them, I want to show them how to out-experience their competition and create raving fan advocates. So often we're in the business, again, talking about consumers and talking about customers and clients. But, there's a echelon, or there's a hierarchy, if you will, to the customer. And at the top, the apex customer is the raving fan advocate. This is the one who actually wants you to win. This is not somebody who simply wants to do business with you, but they actually want you to win. One of the tests I had for myself, Jason, in my personal sales as a salesperson was do my customers care if I hit my goals? And in fact, because I made it a point to let customers know that I had a goal and that their participation in my goal was significant to my life. An average salesperson never even tells the customer I have a goal this month, what their goal is.
But
I would communicate that. Yeah, I would tell my client, Jason, if you're buying a car, I say, Jason, I just want to let you know I have a big goal for this month. I've never done this before. It's significant because at this level, it unlocks some bonuses for me. I've got some trips I'm planning with my wife. And so when you buy a car from me, it's not just about the car, but you actually make an impact in my life and you help me achieve something pretty significant. Well, I tell you, Jason, there were customers who later on in the month would call and check in and be like, hey, it's coming up, it's 18th. I bought my car from you on the 7th. How are you doing with your goal? Or the following month would even check in and say, hey, did you end up hitting your goal? It's like, if you can build a relationship with people that genuinely care about you, that's the mission that I'm on. So if anybody is interested in Sellcology, which is my platform for helping salespeople and sales managers understand how to out-experience the competition, how to use consumer psychology to create a customer-centric approach that creates referrals and retention and loyalty, you can reach me through sellcology.com. That's SELLCHOLOGY. I'm all over the web like Spider-Man. If you just put my name into Google search, you can find me. And then if you're curious about the Pinnacle Society, that's my specific program partnered with Frank and Ali I mentioned earlier. That is exclusively for high performers, though. That's your program to take your top people and tier them up. You have somebody stuck at 25. Let's get them stuck at 45 for a little bit and see how that feels. But when you lift the lid at your organization, when you take your top 2 or 3 people and you really get them to expand up, when they're in a room with a bunch of other high producers and they're seeing what's possible, it just changes their belief system. So you can find out about us, again, through thepinnaclesociety.com. But in closing, I just want to say, Jason, it's an honor to get an opportunity to speak to your audience on such an important topic as how to drive loyalty. And we've covered just a couple small examples. I hope they were helpful. And, obviously you'll be able to follow my journey on social media and you get to see what we're trying to do over here at Cherokee. But we're community driven and we're going to change the business.
Dude, I love it. And I'm confident you will. That's the kicker. Like, I know Jonathan will. Jonathan is intentional and he's got a mindset that's going to continue to move forward. Jonathan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today. This has been an amazing conversation for everybody out there watching and listening. One of the biggest compliments you can give myself or Jonathan as content creators is share the show. All right. Share the show means so much to us. If you got a manager or a friend or a colleague that needs to see some portion of today's conversation, share the show. It is the biggest compliment you can ever give us. Jonathan, again, thank you so much for your time. Everybody out there, you guys have yourself an amazing day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Driven Loyalty Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.